December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge is raging. Thousands of American soldiers are dying in the frozen forests of Belgium. But hundreds of miles away, another battle is unfolding, not with tanks or artillery, but inside the headquarters of the Allied command. One British Field Marshal has had enough of General George S. Patton. He demands that Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower remove Patton from command. The room falls silent. Everyone waits to hear Eisenhower's answer. What he says next will shape the final months of World War II. George S. Patton was unlike any other Allied general. He wore ivory-handled pistols, spoke with absolute confidence, and believed speed could win battles before the enemy even understood what was happening. To American troops, he was inspiring. To many Allied commanders, he was exhausting. No relationship was more complicated than the one between Patton and Britain's most famous commander, Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. Both were brilliant, both were ambitious, and neither liked sharing the spotlight. Their rivalry simmered throughout the war, but by late 1944, it threatened to fracture the Allied command itself, and Eisenhower found himself caught between two of the strongest personalities in military history. The tension hadn't started during the Battle of the Bulge. It had been building for months. After the Normandy landings, Allied armies raced across France. Patton's Third Army advanced with astonishing speed. Entire German divisions collapsed before they could regroup. Meanwhile, Montgomery favored carefully planned, methodical offensives. He believed reckless advances wasted lives. Patton believed hesitation gave the Germans time to recover. Neither man hesitated to criticize the other. Their disagreements became known throughout Allied headquarters. Staff officers whispered about arguments. Journalists noticed the growing rivalry. Even ordinary soldiers sensed the competition between America's aggressive tank commander and Britain's disciplined field marshal. Then came Operation Market Garden. Montgomery's ambitious airborne offensive ended in failure. Patton didn't publicly celebrate it, but privately he remained convinced that his own army could have achieved more if given greater priority. The rivalry only deepened. But an even greater crisis was just around the corner. On December 16, 1944, the Germans launched one of the largest surprise offensives of the entire war. More than 200,000 troops smashed through the Ardennes forest. American front lines buckled. Entire units were surrounded. Roads filled with burning vehicles. Snowstorms grounded Allied aircraft. The situation became desperate. Even experienced commanders struggled to understand the scale of the attack. Then, Patton made one of the most remarkable decisions of the war. Instead of continuing his planned offensive farther south, he proposed turning an entire army nearly 90 degrees to relieve the surrounded defenders at Bastogne. It sounded almost impossible, moving hundreds of thousands of men, thousands of vehicles, tanks, artillery, fuel, and supplies through winter conditions while fighting a major battle normally required weeks of planning. Patton believed he could do it in days. Many doubted him, but Patton had already anticipated that Germany might launch a surprise attack. His staff had quietly prepared contingency plans before anyone else requested them. Now they were ready, and everything depended on whether Patton could deliver. Patton's army pivoted with astonishing speed. Columns of tanks crawled through icy roads. Engineers cleared blocked routes around the clock. Drivers navigated through snow, darkness, and constant danger. Within days, Patton's forces reached Bastogne. The siege was broken. The German timetable began to collapse. It was one of the most celebrated operational maneuvers of World War II. Yet success on the battlefield didn't end the fighting inside Allied headquarters. Instead, it made the rivalry even worse. As the crisis eased, Montgomery held a press conference. He praised British forces. He acknowledged the courage of American soldiers. But many American commanders believed he minimized the contributions of U.S. leaders, especially Patton and General Omar Bradley. To Patton, it wasn't simply poor wording. It felt like someone else was taking credit for an Allied victory purchased with American blood. His anger exploded. Meetings became tense. Private conversations grew even sharper. Some accounts describe Patton openly calling Montgomery impossible to work with. The alliance was winning the war, but personally, its senior commanders were drifting further apart. Then came the demand that shocked everyone. The arguments had become impossible to ignore. Montgomery questioned Patton's judgment. Patton openly criticized Montgomery's caution. The conflict threatened Allied unity. According to accounts from those around the headquarters, Montgomery argued that Patton's behavior had become unacceptable and that stronger action was needed. Whether expressed as a formal demand or in forceful private discussions, the message was unmistakable. Patton was becoming a problem. Pressure mounted on Eisenhower. As Supreme Commander, he wasn't just directing armies. He was holding together an alliance made up of different nations, different governments, and commanders with enormous egos. Removing Patton might calm British frustrations. Keeping him risked further conflict. Every option carried consequences. Everyone waited to see what Eisenhower would do. Eisenhower understood something few others did. Wars weren't won by personalities. They were won by results. He knew Patton could be difficult. He had already disciplined him after the infamous slapping incidents in Sicily. He knew Patton's temper, his ego, his impulsive remarks. But he also knew something equally important. When the fighting became desperate, Patton delivered. According to multiple historical accounts, Eisenhower made it clear that he had no intention of dismissing Patton while his battlefield performance remained indispensable. History often remembers victories as the work of united armies. The reality is far more complicated. Behind every successful campaign were powerful personalities, conflicting strategies, national pride, and leaders forced to make impossible choices. Patton and Montgomery never became friends. Their rivalry continued until the war's final months. Yet despite their disagreements, both helped defeat Nazi Germany. Eisenhower's greatest victory may not have been commanding millions of soldiers. It may have been keeping extraordinary commanders focused on one goal, even when they couldn't stand each other. Because sometimes, winning a war isn't just about defeating the enemy. It's about keeping your own side together long enough to finish the fight.